Hi, I'm Chad. You're watching Squarebody Stuff. Hey, welcome back to the channel. We are trying to stay warm here in southern Missouri and at the Squarebody Stuff Ranch. It's been a rough couple days trying to get everything ready. We're looking for some sub-zero temperatures and some winter precipitation in the next few days. So I've spent some time trying to get everything ready around here so I don't have any issues. But yeah, something's probably always going to pop up, but I'm doing my best to be proactive about it. Now in this video, we're going to be working on a little cream puff, my 79 C10, pretty much my daily driver. Unless it's really bad weather, that's when I drive old Maxine, my Duramax. I would like to drive my crew cab, if you can see him back there in the background, but he's having some issues with the front differential and not really roadworthy in four-wheel drive if it's bad weather. But anyhow, what we're going to do with cream puff is I'm going to change the thermostat out. It's got a 160-degree thermostat in him. That's what I run, most of the time. But when it gets really, really cold, and this radiator that I've got in there, that I've done a video on putting it in there. It's an aftermarket aluminum one. It keeps it really, really cool, so it just barely gets enough heat to warm me up inside the cab. So we're going to put a 190-degree thermostat in him and see if that helps out. But we got to get Squeaky out of the shop. I don't have the front end on him yet, but he's drivable to move in and out of the shop with the fenders and hood off. Yeah, old Texas enjoying the warm sun, sunbathing on the concrete. I do have shop stove going. Try to get it above 60 degrees in there, or 50 degrees at least, because it started out at about 14 degrees this morning. So we're trying to get some heat going in here. Yeah, nice and warm. So before we get started on everything, don't forget to check out my merchandise website. We've got shirts, hats, stickers, these patches like on my shirt that you can iron on, whatever you want to use it for. One cool thing I've done with the patches is I put them on the headrest of the seat covers for old Squeaky here. Several uses for those. Go check out squarebodystuff.shop to check out our merchandise. And if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button down below. Click that notification bell. I give you notifications whenever I put out new videos. And always hit up the thumbs up and give me a like. Of course, I don't know if you consider this a cold start because in the shop it's about 55 degrees. I'll see what Squeaky, the temperature on Squeaky is. About 50, 48. So not necessarily a cold start, but we'll get him started up, move him out of the shop, and get old cream puff in here. And for those of you who may not be familiar with what Cream Puff has going on underneath the hood, it's pretty much just a stock bottom end 350, nothing real fancy, just basically comp cams, 270H camshaft, some Z28 valve springs, Performer RPM intake, and 600 Holly and headers. That's pretty much it. Nice daily driver. It does have 276 gears, and I run the 33-inch tall tires on them, so a little bit high gear, but it's great for cruising. It's great for what I do, use him for. He doesn't pick up and go super quick, but he's just a nice cruiser. But eventually, that guy's gonna go in it. We're gonna go through that big block and squeeze it down here in old Cream Puff. I think he would really enjoy that. All right, so now we're getting to the, I guess, the how-to part of this. I'm going to drain the radiator. You don't need to drain it all the way down if you're just going to change the thermostat out. In your truck, vehicle, whatever, may be a little bit different. I've got all the emission stuff is gone. So I've just got a regular standard thermostat housing. I don't have a bunch of garbage in the way to have to work around. Your application may be different, but the bare basics of changing out the thermostat will be about the same as long as once you get to it. Now, draining the radiator, you can use the drain valve, which most of them have it on the lower passenger side corner, or you can siphon it out through the cap. I used to use just like a primer bowl for a boat application. It just kind of pumps it out, basically a little transfer pump, or just pull a lower radiator hose, however you want to do it, because sometimes those drain valves are plugged up or hard to get to, and they can make a big mess. So we're going to get this drained and get the upper radiator hose off. I'm going to pull the air cleaner off. So yeah, I'm just going to set the camera up and kind of take you through the steps of changing out your thermostat. Take the cap off so it will not create a vacuum. I've got a drain pan under there, but it's probably still going to make a mess in the floor because that's just how it goes. I can't seem to not make a mess when it comes to draining antifreeze. That's why I used to like just siphon it out of the cap. You have less of a chance to make a mess. And once you get going, it'll kind of siphon it instead of pumping it. I think we've drained out enough. Close the drain valve. Of course, I'm sure I'm going to get some comments about my plastic fuel filter, but I run them for a long time and never had any issues with them. When we put the big block in there, I'm going to be going to all AN lines, so don't worry about it. We'll get this upper radiator hose off. Tuck it out of the way. Your bolt should be a 9/16. Now 9/16 head or 3/8 bolt. It's really a 9/16 socket. And you should be able to peck on a little bit and get it broke free. And there you go. There's your thermostat. Now your thermostat should have writing on the bottom of it. The new one I'm putting in is 195 degree. I'm not sure if you could read that. The old one was a 160. Let me see. Yeah, I don't have my glasses on, but this should be on the bottom, let you know what temperature you have. But hopefully this 195 will give us some more heat in the cabin. I got everything cleaned up. If you don't have a wire wheel on your bench grinder, it's not a necessity. You could scrape it off like I did on the intake manifold with a scraper, wire brush, whatever means you have available to you to get the gasket surface cleaned up. Also, you'll want to make sure you don't have any pits or bad corrosion or anything on your thermostat housing or your intake, so you don't have any sealing problems. Now once you get your mating surfaces all scraped up and clean, I'll take some brake parts cleaner, car cleaner, something to wipe them down with. You got a good dry oil-free surface. Your intake manifold should have a step, and that's where your thermostat sets down in. Now we'll get into the part of use a gasket, use RTV, use both. What do you prefer? If you have an aftermarket one, it may have just an O-ring, which I don't really like those. I can never seem to get those to seal quite right. If you have a chrome thermostat housing, I've had issues with those sealing. But my preferred method is to use a good gasket and put just a really thin layer of some good RTV, which I use a lot of this ultra black. Seems to work pretty good on a little bit of everything. You may have your own preference, but that's what I use the most of. And I put a thin layer on both sides of the gasket. That way it'll make up for any imperfections in your thermostat housing or your intake manifold, because sometimes the gasket isn't enough if you got some minor imperfections like pits or scratches or anything. And if you get in the middle of the project and you realize you forgot to get the thermostat housing gasket and you don't have one, you could seal thermostat housing without a gasket. Just use some good RTV. Follow the instructions. Make a bead, a nice thick layer, probably about the thickness of your gasket. Let it set up just a little bit. Set your thermostat housing on there, and just kind of finger tight your bolts. You don't want to squish it out yet, and you want to let it set up for probably about 24 hours, and then you can torque it down. That method takes a little bit longer because you got to make sure you let that RTV cure out, because if you do it too quick, you're going to squeeze it all out and you're probably going to have little teeny leaks. And maybe a little tech tip, you may or may not know this, but this is what I do with the tip that I cut off of this. I keep it, reuse it, and turn it around, and it'll help seal up your end. Now if you leave it for very long, it's going to cure out and make a mess and get all hard in there, and then you just have to start poking holes in the side of your tube to get RTV out. But short term, this works really well. And like I said, you don't want a very heavy coat, just enough to maybe fill in any voids that you might have. You really don't want enough to squish out a whole lot. It may squish a little bit out, but. And also, depending on your intake manifold, some of the bolt holes may go all the way through into the water jacket. You'll just have to look, stick a screwdriver, or just take a flashlight, look down in there. If it goes all the way through into the water jacket, you'll need to put some sort of sealant on your bolts, which the RTV will work just fine for that, or some Teflon paste. I don't prefer using any Teflon tape on anything automotive. And doing this method with using the gasket and just a little bit of RTV, I may let it set up for maybe 10-15 minutes or so, but not really cure out a whole lot, because I kind of want it to actually be able to squish and kind of move a little bit to fill in any imperfections. All right, now we've got everything cleaned up, gooped up. Set that on there. Get our bolt started. There we go. Torque on these, if you want to actually use a torque wrench, is probably around 30, 35, somewhere in there for a 3/8 bolt. But I really don't worry too much about the torque specs on a thermostat housing. Just want to make sure that they're good and snug and will seal up good. And go back and forth, back and forth. Don't tighten up one side all the way and then the other side. Go back and forth several times. That way you get a good even pressure and you don't break an ear off of your thermostat housing. All right. Now I really need to let that RTV set up for a few hours maybe before you put any coolant back in it and start it up and warm it up or anything. So we'll be right back whenever this thing is set up and all put back together. Let's see how much of a mess I can make. Now what you've seen in that jug before I poured it in there was it's already some premix that I make up. You can either use the 50-50 pre-diluted from the store or use the concentrate and mix it yourself. If you use the concentrate, mix it yourself, you really need to use distilled water or deionized water so you don't have any minerals or anything like that that can mess up your coolant system. But with that said, I try to keep this jug of a premix handy so I can top off any systems I need around the places. All the vehicles I've got, of course the newer ones take you know, the newer pink or purple, whatever color, antifreeze, orange, but that's for the green stuff's for my tractors, for all the square bodies and the older stuff. But you also want to double check, make sure you got your drain valve closed if you completely drain the system. Alright, I'll just loosely put the cap on there and start it up, let it warm up, and then double check for any leaks. As I'm letting it warm up, on my temperature gauge, normally whenever with the 160 degree thermostat, it would get to that first quarter mark, I mean just under it, and that's pretty much as warm as it'd get if you're going down the road. Of course I've got electric fans, they don't kick on till it reaches about the halfway mark, so hopefully we'll see what the 190 degree or 195 degree thermostat looks like on the temperature gauge. Now come springtime, I'll probably switch it back out, put the 160 degree back in. Maybe by then we'll actually have the big block in there. I don't see any leaks. I think we're good to go on that part. I'm gonna let it continue to warm up and we'll look at that temperature gauge. That should be where my gauge normally runs now. I got the heat on. Oh yeah, we've got some actual heat coming out of the vent now. Now after it cools off, you'll want to check the antifreeze level again. Top it off if it needs to be. You may check it a couple more times after a couple heat cycles just to make sure you didn't have any air bubbles in there. Well, everything seems to be working great. I've got heat now in the cab. Fans working, everything seems to be working right. Give everything a once over, all the fluid stuff. So we should be ready for winter time. An old cream puff here. And if you notice, I didn't put the hose back on the air cleaner because this is actually kind of set up for ram air. Where it hooks up, it doesn't have any baffle in it, so it just shoves cold air straight up in there and straight into the air cleaner. And the heat diverter, I've got it blocked off where it won't do its thing, so it's always open So during the winter months, I take the snorkel off so I'm not getting too much cold air into the engine. Well, hopefully you guys learned something. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or comments, anything. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. And if you are subscribed, you might want to check it again, because there's been some word going around that YouTube is unsubscribing some people. So go check your subscription out. Make sure you've got that button clicked. And again, hit up my merchandise website, squarebodystuff.shop. And until next time, keep your square bodies rolling. We'll catch you later.